But for 10 years, this state has put together its budget with gimmicks and tricks and unrealistic expectations that have pushed this state deeper and deeper into debt. It's time now to restore California to fiscal solvency and put us on the road to economic recovery and jobs.
That was California's new governor, Jerry Brown, talking about the need for change in the Golden State just yesterday. He outlined a budget that calls for $12.5 billion in spending cuts. The state's facing a $25 billion budget gap over the next 18 months. California State Treasurer Bill Lockyer joins us now on the phone live from Sacramento. Good early morning to you, Bill. We announced what the governor intends to cut. That includes a 10% pay cut for public servants like yourself. Republicans already saying this isn't enough. What's your read?
Well, some of us, like me, have already had an 18% pay cut. So this is for the employees that weren't already cut in prior years. But I agree with the governor, and I've been urging policymakers to do this for the last decade, that they can't continue to have unfinanced structural deficits that continue to pile up debt, that overpromise. And so I'm delighted that the governor is doing the politically difficult and fiscally hard balanced budget proposal that he's put forward. There are going to be a lot of arguments. There are a lot of moving parts, but the basic premise is sound, and it's no more gimmicks, no more games. Let's have a balanced budget.
A part of this proposal would be a moratorium on state bond sales. It's going to save the state, projected to save the state $250 million by keeping you out of the market until later this year. What projects are going to be affected by that, and when will you have to return to the market for funding?
The governor and I worked on this to make sure that we would not be shutting down any projects such as transit or schools or others that are currently in the process of construction. So we fund with current revenues and bond funds, we can fund all the projects to the end of this calendar year. That's why we would need to get back to the market in the fall with probably $5 to $6 billion in new GO issues to fund construction infrastructure projects for next year.
The last time that you and I spoke, we were talking about the expiration of the Build America bond program. You said at the time that the disappearance of it would cost jobs in California and would force you towards more expensive methods of financing. How did that expiration factor into your calculations as to just how long you can hold on for before returning to the market?
Well, we still think that the expiration of that program will ultimately lead to an increase in the cost of public financing. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see with issues all over the country what the cumulative impact is. But that lapse didn't actually cause this bond moratorium. That's a result of the need to have a balanced budget and to see that there are lots of areas that have to be cut, including debt service cost.
In some of the proposals that the governor outlined yesterday, some of the response from Republicans has been that they're not going to support this idea of a referendum that would be held, I believe, in March about temporary tax increases. How do you get over that hurdle? How do you move towards implementation in light of that?
Well, ultimately, someone has to convince Republicans who historically and consistently oppose any tax increases. Now, we're talking about tax increases that were enacted while Governor Schwarzenegger, a Republican, was in office. And what Brown is saying is no new taxes, extend those existing ones for several more years in order to get the budget in balance. If we don't do that, and of course the governor's also saying, let the voters decide, put it on the ballot. surprising to me in a democracy when people's position is, I don't even want to let voters decide. But we'll see whether they stick with that. But if that doesn't happen, it means to balance the budget, you need to cut, in effect, across the board, 31% out of everything. It essentially eliminates tens of thousands of people in the prisons would be released. Doctors, hospitals, and others that serve medically indigent and elderly would not get payments. K-12 schools would lay off tens and tens of thousands of teachers and class size increase and so on. So if that's the alternative people want, then that's fine.